9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full power. Liftoff of Iridium OneWeb.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Successful liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex 4 East at the Vandenberg Space Force Base. We're carrying the Iridium OneWeb satellites into orbit. We've begun gimbaling the engines on the first stage. Gimbaling is really just tilting the engines.
Telemetry nominal.
We've begun what's called a gravity turn. So we're letting gravity help pull the rocket to go sideways. We need to be going fast horizontally to get into orbit. We actually just got through the throttle bucket.
Vehicle supersonic.
Throttle bucket being where we've throttled down the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for max Q. That's the point of highest stresses on the vehicle.
Max Q.
Fantastic views from this ground tracking cam. Nice to be out of the Vandenberg fog. Now, a rocket needs to go about 17,500 miles an hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth. And if it does get to that velocity, that's what we say that's what we mean when we say we're getting to orbit. So we're continuing to accelerate on the first stage. Call out there of MVAC chill. And that's for the next several events we've got coming up. The first of those is main engine cutoff, where we'll shut down these 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. That'll be followed by stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from each other. The Merlin vacuum on the second stage will ignite at SES-1. And then we will have the fairing halves separate shortly after that around the T+3 minute mark. So again, those events back to back: MECO, stage sep, SES-1, and then shortly after, fairing separation.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
And there are great views of that shortened MVAC nozzle. Right-hand side of your screen is the second stage. Left-hand side of your screen is the first stage. We've begun deploying the hypersonic grid fins on the first stage. Those are those structures that are popping into view right now. Next major milestone will be a fairing deployment. If you keep a close eye out, you might even see those fairings behind the second stage as they trail away.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there is successful separation of the fairings. Now both the fairing halves, in fact, there's a view of one of the fairing halves on the right-hand side of your screen, making its way back to Earth. Both of these fairing halves are flight proven, one of them having flown 3 times and the other one for its 6th time. And we will be attempting to recover both halves once they make it back to Earth using our recovery vessel named Go Beyond. Now from there on, the first stage actually has those 4 grid fins.
Nominal trajectories.
And as we get into the thicker atmosphere, we get more control off of those grid fins. They'll actually do most of the pointing. We don't need to use attitude gas or the engines to do that until the landing burn starts in just about 40 seconds. Now the landing burn will coincide with second engine cutoff on the
Stage 1 transonic.
second stage. Second engine cutoff expected around T+8 minutes, 45-ish seconds.
Stage 2, FTS was saved.
Stage 2, terminal guidance.
Now, during the landing burn, we light just a single center Merlin engine, followed shortly after by landing leg deploy, and then hopefully a soft touchdown on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Pretty fun coming in through the clouds here off the California coast.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
MVAC shutdown.
Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
Okay, a lot of things happened there, but I see a successful landing
Nominal orbit insertion.
of our Falcon 9 first stage. We had a second engine cutoff there. You heard the call out for nominal orbital insertion. So we're in our first parking orbit for the second stage. And on the first stage, that marked the 193rd recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for both Falcon 9 and Heavy. Welcome back to the Iridium OneWeb mission webcast. If you're just joining us, we've had a really great mission so far. We lifted off on time, 6:16 a.m. from Vandenberg Space Force Base. We had a successful first stage landing, 2 successful second stage burns, and successful deployment of all 11 spacecraft from the first deployment sequence. We're coming up on the second deployment sequence of 10 additional OneWeb satellites, including their demonstration satellite named JoeySat. And we've actually got some great views of the payload adapter with those OneWeb satellites.
OneWeb Alpha 3 and Alpha 7 separation confirmed.
And there is both mission control and visual confirmation of OneWeb satellite deployment. We may be able to see it here in a minute. You might have noticed from the views that the second stage has a slight rotation that's intended to help with the payload separation and help the satellites separate from each other as they deploy. It's a pretty slow rotation rate. It amount to the stage completing a full rotation about every 6 minutes. And we've got some great views of the payload adapter and the OneWeb satellites set up in a ring around the top of the payload adapter. Now at this point, we still have 8 remaining OneWeb satellites on board Falcon 9's second stage. We flew a total of 16 OneWeb satellites today, along with the 5 Iridium satellites that we deployed earlier during the first deployment sequence. And in that first deployment sequence, we deployed 6 of the 16 OneWeb satellites.
OneWeb Bravo 5 and Bravo 1 JoeySat separation confirmed.
And there is confirmation of the next 2 satellites, including OneWeb's demonstration satellite. Now, OneWeb satellites also operate in a polar orbit, meaning they fly around the poles of planet Earth. As the Earth rotates below, each of these satellites will see a different part of the globe and be able to provide connectivity services. And that just means a different set of ground stations for us, trying to line up our payload deployment events with ground stations so we can get telemetry and confirm payload deployment. Just so happens right now that we've got some great views from the Svalbard station as we're over the top, the North Pole, the top of the Earth, if you might say.
OneWeb Alpha 8 and Alpha 4 separation confirmed.
So just 4 remaining OneWeb satellites on today's mission. If you're just joining us, welcome. You came at a great time. We're coming up on the last set of payload deployment events for today's mission. Lifted off about an hour and a half ago from Vandenberg. And you're looking at a live view of the second stage, the top of the second stage at the payload adapter fitting with the last remaining satellites on today's mission.
OneWeb Bravo 7 and Bravo 3 separation confirmed.
Two more successful deployments. Kind of cool seeing the reflection off of that satellite coming back on the adapter fitting. We are in view of the sun. Now these satellites are quite packaged up right now for deployment, but eventually they will extend their solar arrays and antennas, which you can see on your screen right now.
OneWeb Bravo 6 and Bravo 2 separations confirmed. All Iridium and OneWeb separations confirmed.
And with that, Mission Control said it perfectly. All the satellites have been deployed